Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at the Gamemax Mirage White Fan Edition, an addressable RGB fan which is less than a cup of coffee. How crazy is that? Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so those of you who are watching this video and thinking, well, how much is a cup of coffee? Well, actually, yes, that was not a direct quote. I'm not entirely sure if you can buy these for the exact price of a coffee in your particular region, but it's pretty darn close. These at the moment you can pick up on places such as box.co.uk and CCL and places like that here in the United Kingdom for less than £4. These at the moment are actually on box.co.uk for £3.88 each. Now, I was fortunate enough that I didn't even have to pay that. These were sent to me free of charge for review purposes from our good friends over at Gamemax UK. So thanks to you guys over there for sending them over. I'll be honest with you, these are one of those fans that I looked at originally many times, and I've seen them and I've thought, no, I'm not going down that route. I can't do it to myself. Because generally, you know what it's like, you buy a cheap fan and you end up buying two sets of fans because the first set are generally junk. Which I assumed these would be, which for £3 something each, you'd expect that to be the case, but I have been pleasantly surprised, hence why I'm making this video. Otherwise, these would have probably gone back in the box and I was sent it back to Gamemax and said, thank you very much, but no thanks. But I'm actually genuinely surprised. Now, these aren't going to be bowel-shatteringly fast fans, clearly, because they're relatively cheap, but they do move a decent amount of air. They've got around about 40 CFM of airflow. They are exceptionally quiet. They're very easy to control using a 3-pin voltage control rather than PWM. So again, that is where they cut some money back. These aren't PWM, so they are going to be DC controlled. But to be honest with you, pretty much every motherboard that I know of, their PWM fan headers also do VDC or voltage control. You got no issues there whatsoever. And ironically, even things like Gamemax's own RGB hub, you can plug these into and they just absolutely work fine. All the 3 speed settings on the remote control, no problems whatsoever. And even in MSI Center, adjusting these, even though it's voltage control, you can get them down to around about 3.5 volts and up to a maximum of 12 volts. At 3.5 volts, they spin at somewhere in the region of about 300 RPM, which is basically totally inaudible. You don't basically, even though they're on, apart from the RGB lighting and the fact that you can see the blades moving. Put them up to 12 volts, yes, they do get a little bit noisier, but you'll see exactly what that's like a little bit later on in the video when we fire these up so you can see what they're like. But yeah, I am genuinely impressed with these. So let's take a look at the specs actually on the box. So on the box, you can see this is the Mirage White 120mm cooling fan. Again, they've not gone totally overboard on the packaging. Very simple, very straightforward, but actually quite nice retail packaging. It's not like they just come in a plastic bag or something. On the back of the box, you've got the specifications. So dimensions, these are 120mm fans by 25mm deep. Rated speed on there, it says 1100 RPM. Now this is basically taken from the Molex connection speed, because they do sadly also have a Molex connector on, which we'll take a look at shortly, but it's not the end of the world. But it's great that you've got options here. Noise level has been rated at 25 dB, and I can quite easily agree with that. They are very quiet indeed. Wattage and voltage, power, all that, you can see on the back there. It does have an MTBF rating of 40,000 hours. Now, I had no idea how much this is, so I had to ask Siri that. And it turns out it's somewhere in the region of about 5-year lifespan for the fans. So less than £1 a year, I think that's pretty decent. Something else which actually surprised me, but kind of explains why they are actually so quiet, is the fact that they are actually using a fluid dynamic bearing in these fans. Now, normally, cheapo fans like this, you'd have either ball bearings, maybe a rifle bearing, possibly just a magnetic type setup. But these actually have a fluid dynamic bearing in them, which goes some way of explaining, again, like I said, how crazy quiet they actually are. So let's take a closer look at one of the fans. So this is the fan, as you can see. It's a 120mm fan. There's not really a great deal to get excited about. You've got a 7-blade setup, and it's using a kind of acrylic plastic on there, shiny plastic. Something which actually might be useful for some of you if you're doing a build with a ton of RGB. White blades generally reflect really well the colours that are surrounding it. So if you're trying to do some sort of themed build and you're trying to get colours out, then that's a really good way of doing it. I have noticed the sticker in the middle on pretty much, well, the two that I've opened so far, they've all been slightly offset. So you might find yourself actually taking that sticker off. I'm not entirely sure what's behind it, but certainly you could do if you wanted to. So in terms of production, they just slap those on, but it's not the end of the world. Something you do not often see actually on cheapo fans is the fact they've got rubber cushions on both sides, which actually is better than some of the ID cooling coolers we've had recently. In terms of addressable RGB, so you've got 15 addressable RGB LEDs in the fan, and they're around the outside edge there, so you've got this kind of halo effect rather than the blades being illuminated. Again, another cost saving part. Having illuminated blades does cost extra money, believe it or not, so it's pretty cool there. If you're wondering, well, if it's halo, that's not going to look particularly good if they're down flat. If you've got them kind of top mounted or bottom mounted, you've got no problems there because there's an additional rim around the outer edge as well. So they're rim lit and also front lit. Sadly, we don't have any on the back at all. You do get a very, very minimal amount of bleed through from some of the surrounding areas, but essentially from the back, they are completely kind of, well, yeah, a standard fan effectively. Frame wise, really sturdy frame. I'm not too sure what the material is in there, but they are rock solid. Gone are the days when we used to have those old Molex powered fans that you'd have for free in a case, like an 80mm or 120mm, and basically you could do that with it and they would just basically snap or fall apart. Yeah, it's a really strong construction, very surprising. You've also got two leads coming off here, so one of which is going to be for addressable RGB. Thank baby Jesus, these are the normal 5V 3-pin addressable RGB, so that can plug into any pretty much standard connection on a motherboard or a hub of some sort. And even at this price, we've got a little pass-through, so there is the 3-pin pass-through there, so you can use that to daisy chain fans should you want to. So if you've got a whole bunch of these, which you probably will do because it's sort of £3 a fan, you could quite easily get a bunch of these, and 6 fans will cost you something in the region of like £22, which is basically nothing. You pay that for a single fan for some other models, which is pretty stunning. When it comes to power, this is the bit which is going to turn off a lot of people, I feel. You've got a Molex connection, and also you've got a 3-pin voltage connection. Now, if you wanted to, obviously, in a super cheap flip build that you don't have many power plugs, or your motherboard's got basically no fan headers, this is actually pretty cool because you can just daisy chain a ton of Molex together. The fan at its top speed is pretty quiet anyway, so it's not going to be like you're going to sell a PC and people are going to think, wow, that's really noisy. So you've got no worries there. The 3-pin voltage control works as well, if not better, than some PWM fans I've seen, to be honest with you. There's not many PWM fans, including the brands such as Up Here and stuff like that. Most of their PWM control fans will go down to somewhere in the region 500 if you're lucky. Most of them are sort of the 700-800 RPM, which isn't that quiet in some cases. So the fact that you can get it down to about 300 RPM before it basically stops spinning, yes, pretty awesome. But you'll see some more of that a little bit later. Obviously, if you don't want the Molex connections on there and you want to make it a little bit tidier, literally get yourself some pliers, snip, take those off, job done. But I think personally, a lot of people probably leave those on for those cheaper flip builds just so they can daisy chain them together to make cable management a little bit easier. So with that said, let's get them fired up and see what they're actually like. So to start off with, I've got the fan connected. So this is currently connected to the power supply just there, as you can see. So this is just using a Molex connection. So no power control, literally 12 volts going straight in. And the fan is, well, essentially silent. If I be really quiet now, I'll put it by my microphone so you can hear it. I'll do it sideways on so it's not wind turbulence. Even with that there, personally, I think the power supply fan, which is a 120mm fan also, I feel that's actually louder, even though it's further away. You can probably hear the wind a little bit from that side. But that's at full blast. Literally, full blast. Now, it's not moving a ton of air, let's say. It's not blowing my hair away. That was probably a thing to do with hormones, but it is moving some air. So if I get... You can see there is some movement. Now it's only about 38.5 CFM, I believe it was. So under 40 CFM. It's not going to be a wind tunnel in your case. But if you get a bunch of these together, it's certainly going to make the ability for your case to transfer air outside very cheaply and very quietly. I still can't believe that is at full blast. These are rather cool. Anyway, let's get them hooked up to the hub and we can see some addressable RGB effects. And there you go, there is the fan connects up. So this is using actually Gamemax's own hub. We've reviewed this before actually. I'll put a link in the video description. Nice and handy to do. Obviously, if you want to get that as well, you could combine 6 fans into this hub very easily, wire it all up and then have control via remote. Again, for some cases that will be quite a nice thing to have. Speed control works So this is now down onto the lowest speed. That is still a lot louder to be honest with you. There's virtually nothing coming through there. So that's speed setting 1. Let's try speed setting 2. A very, very slight increase in noise. A lot of increase in air, well, comparatively. And on to full blast. Super quiet. You can probably hear the cat is actually eating in the bowl in the kitchen. So if you're probably listening carefully, you can probably hear that much, much louder than what these fans are. Which, yeah, is quite mad. They are very, very quiet. RGB wise, again, usual sort of deal. So you've got all the usual kind of effects that you can achieve with them, obviously depending on the controller you're using. Again, we're using Gamemax's own controller with the remote control here, just to see what it's like. I would say, if anything, the RGB effect isn't particularly bright. Now, we are in studio lighting conditions here, so we've got 2 big panel lights either side there, and they're still obviously visible. You can probably see them on the camera, but if you take into comparison the ones behind, they're probably a little bit brighter. But I think this actually looks quite nice. It's a slightly more muted affair. If you don't like the white blades on this, they do actually a black bladed version, that's hard to say, which is basically the same price, sometimes even cheaper. So if the white blades aren't really your thing, you don't like that, then yeah, if you want a slightly more stealthy look, then they do the black bladed version. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap things up. I just wanted to do a quick video on these because they were included basically. We've got a review to do for another case which Gamemax has sent to us, and they said, do you want any fans? So I said, well, yeah, I'll take a look at these. I wasn't really interested. I'm more interested in the case. But actually taking these out, quickly firing them up, seeing what they're all about, I've got to be honest with you, I'm really impressed. And for the sake of like £3.50, I know for a fact there's going to be some viewers out there that are watching the pennies and they're PC flippers and they're thinking, what can I put in? I don't want to buy like a complete set of up-here fans, which are like 30, 40 quid for the set. You can do the same sort of thing with this for a considerable amount of money less. Or if you just want one fan, you want to spend £3.88 at the moment at box.co.uk for a single addressable RGB fan just to give a little bit of light in your system, you certainly can do. So anyway, let me know what you think about these in the comments section below. There will be a build being done. I will be putting these in them, so if you want to check that out, check out our live streams on Saturday evening, 9 PM UK time, sorry, 8 PM UK time, 9 PM was the old time. Anyway, you get the idea. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the chime notification as well, so you want to be notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.